Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. As always, I'm back with another message, and the message for today is to finish strong. Now, we'll be reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8, and James chapter 1, verse 12. Now, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8 goes, "Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit." Now, to give a bit of context, this message came to me following a race I ran back in December, and it was my first competitive 5K in Spain. And I remember going into that race with the goal of winning. Now, it was a pretty big race, so the competition was very, very high. So I started off very quickly. It was hard, but I was able to maintain that speed, and I was even running with some other guys that I was encouraging. Towards the end, it was just me and one guy running, and as he was struggling, I was encouraging him to keep up with me. But for some reason, somehow, I ended up giving up in some way. I significantly slowed down, and that's ultimately because in the moment I was tired. I just didn't want to push that hard any longer, and also because it just seemed like the race was never going to end. And once the race ended, I looked at my placement and realized that I did pretty well. I placed in the top 10 in my category, but it's still, what stayed with me was the fact that I momentarily gave up. And even though I finished the race, I still could have done better. Now, I want to encourage you guys to start whatever you're doing well, go through it as well as you can, but don't get discouraged by how painful it may be, because ultimately there is a finish line, and you don't want to live with the regret of not doing as well as you should have, fulfilling your mission to the highest degree possible, and not having the possibility to go back and change it. Now, the beginning of this verse says, "Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit." Now, what it means by better is the end of a thing than its beginning, it's not just the fact that it's ending, but you should also look at how you're ending things. And I just want to encourage you guys to not lose sight of the objective, to walk by faith, not by sight. And unfortunately, in that moment, I walked by sight and not by faith that God could have, given me the strength to push through. A good finish is not necessarily what you should have done. A good finish is not necessarily your portion. Maybe you were meant to do better. Maybe you were meant to get better. Because there's always a higher purpose to what you're doing. So just keep that in mind. Don't be like me in that situation. And walk by faith, not by sight. Now, James chapter 1, verse 12 goes, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." Now, this passage puts emphasis on remaining steadfast under trial, meaning that you should keep the same focus you had in the beginning in the end. And if anything, you should only increase in that which you had in the beginning. Why? Because once you have stood the test, you will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. To come back to what I was saying about making sure that you get your portion rather than just finishing well and just getting a good placement, it's also about fully fulfilling and fully getting what God wanted you to get out of that situation, or maybe a competition or whatever it may be, you need to get what is yours. And it's very important to not just finish well, but give it your absolute best. Ultimately, it gets hard in the end, but that's when you should give it your best push. That's when you should be going the fastest. That's when you should be the most focused, because a split second could change anything. You could be dominating the entire race, but something this little can completely derail you. So in my case, I still finished well, but in other cases, a split second could wipe away everything that you had worked upon up till that point. So do not let that be for you. Do not let that be the case for you, and really focus till the end. See it through well, and finish strong.